This is the world at its most spectacular, the most memorable, most exotic, most magical must-see destinations. Selected by the world's most seasoned travel editors, these are the best of the best. There are many animals that inspire awe or fascination. The unique creatures of the Galapagos, majestic beasts of the African savanna, the undersea menagerie of the Great Barrier Reef, and the panda, which has become an icon for endangered species. They are the planet's wildlife treasures. No one who has ever laid eyes on a wild tiger can forget the experience. Endangered, they have to be protected from their only predator, man. In northern India, an area of dry deciduous forest, Ranthambore National Park, is the place to admire a sleek and noble beast. India is a land of grace and color. With over 1 billion residents, the second most populous country in the world has a long and distinguished history stretching back over millennia. Exotic foods, traditional marketplaces, precious textiles. It is the land of 700,000 villages, as Gandhi put it so poetically. On the outskirts of Ranthambore National Park, village life is much like other places on the subcontinent, except that here, children have grown up with tales of fierce man-eating tigers emerging from the forest to dine on the badly behaved. On a bright autumn afternoon, under rustling leaves, the environment appears too tranquil to conceal one of nature's greatest hunters. A light breeze blows through the forest, and even the langurs, hopping about on architectural ruins, seem to appreciate a respite from the scorching Indian sun. Sambar deer, the third largest species in the world, graze peacefully, while peacocks gather at a pond. It's hard to believe that this serene landscape conceals one of nature's most formidable predators. Even in this national park, the sighting of one of these rare creatures is far from guaranteed. Probably no more than 24 tigers roam its 400 square kilometers. Men have exploited these forests for centuries. The Maharajas of Jaipur hunted here. Indian royalty would descend on the area for colorful tiger hunts, and the British Raj later followed their example. Following in those footsteps, it's still possible to hunt for tigers in the national park by elephant. This is a hunt in name only. The tigers that survive today are fiercely protected. The rifles are there to ward off tigers. Generally, they will steer clear of these massive animals. Their mere presence will keep the hunters on foot safe from attack. The authorities are engaged in a constant battle with those who would still try to poach these beautiful creatures for their skins and the supposed medicinal remedies derived from many of their body parts. Perhaps a herd of cheetah deer will attract a predator. There are other places in Asia and Siberia to see a tiger in its natural habitat. Of the 3,000 or so left in the wild, India's Bengal tigers represent about half the total population. The tigers of Ranthambore have adapted to their protected surroundings and become diurnal. This means that they hunt these forests during the day, not at night like tigers in other places. And that's what makes Ranthambore unique. The chance to observe a tiger stalking through the forest in the full glory of the midday sun. A tiger on the prowl needs to outsmart its prey. The hunt is on, and the tiger's presence causes the heart rate to quicken. This remains one of the few places where patience and good fortune reward the visitor with a glimpse of a Royal Bengal tiger. But get too close, and there will be a scowl to warn off intruders. Tigers hunt alone. The tall golden grass provides excellent camouflage. The tiger is an opportunistic hunter. It will try to kill any prey that crosses its path. From monkeys to baby elephants, even humans if it gets the chance. Stealthily it hides, waiting for its prey. Tigers hunt by stalking, and then at the right moment they pounce. They can leap more than 10 meters to seize prey with their razor-sharp claws. This fearsome killer strikes without warning, apparently conjured from thin air. When a tiger is on the prowl, many creatures take flight. But being at the top of the food chain is not easy. Prey frequently gets away. And killing is not always a clean affair. The wound on this tiger's eye demonstrates an instinct for self-defense among its prey. A single deer can satisfy a tiger for several days, but a successful kill is one of the rarest sightings, even in a tiger sanctuary. They are solitary, territorial creatures for the most part, and only associate with each other in mating season. Their habitat and prey must also be conserved in order to ensure their survival in the wild. The tiger is 3 meters of perfect form. It's an elusive, graceful animal, and in Ranthambore National Park, the Royal Bengal tiger has a chance to survive. In the Pacific Ocean, there's a unique environment, one which changed how we understand the natural world. 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador and a province of that country, the Galapagos Islands straddle the equator. Volcanic eruptions created the 13 major islands and about 40 smaller outcrops of this archipelago. Visitors come to the Galapagos in the footsteps of a young Charles Darwin to see for themselves the endemic species that eventually led him to his theory of evolution. These islands teem with abundant and unique wildlife. There are creatures here that have taken a leading role in our understanding of the natural history of the planet. The round-the-world voyage of the survey ship HMS Beagle brought Darwin to the Galapagos in 1835. He observed that the giant tortoises had different shaped shells on different islands, an adaptation that seemed inexplicable at the time. He also collected specimens of finches from several islands. On his return to England, his analysis revealed that birds from different islands had different characteristics, particularly the shapes of their beaks. These two remarkable creatures became the focal points of Darwin's study of natural selection. The only way to appreciate the islands is by boat. When these volcanic islands arose from the ocean floor, they were just bare lava and stone. Animals may have hitched a ride on some floating piece of debris, a raft from the mainland for a fearless lizard. Plants also colonized the islands, their seeds and spores carried on the winds or deposited by birds flying across the ocean. Once the reptiles arrived, they were free to explore new roles. Although a few small land animals like bats and rats made the trip to the Galapagos, their impact has been negligible, allowing the island's reptile populations to establish a unique pecking order. Isolated, the inhabitants of the Galapagos roamed freely, lending the islands unparalleled tranquility. Nowhere else on Earth can visitors get so close to the natural world. Not all wildlife here is unique, but much of it is uniquely approachable, because the lack of predators has left many species unafraid of humans. Birds were able to reach the Galapagos with relative ease. Scores of exotic species circle the islands. With a black streak across its alabaster face, the masked booby is a vision of mysterious beauty. But all other birds on these islands are dwarfed by the waved albatross, whose wingspan reaches over 2 meters. They are exquisite gliders and can fly for months without touching land. These birds return to the Galapagos, and only here, to mate. Their reproduction cycle involves a splendid courtship dance. It's a carefully choreographed ritual of crossing beaks and bowing. Albatrosses leave the islands during the winter months, but reunite with their mates once a year to breed. A little further inland, another bird proudly displays his distinctive feet to entice a potential mate. After pairing up, two blue-footed boobies point their beaks to the sky and begin a complex ceremony. Once the female lays an egg, both parents care for the unborn in a nest surrounded by a ring of guano. The boobies' massive webbed feet are filled with blood vessels and make excellent incubators. They keep the egg at a precise temperature until it's ready to hatch. High above them, a bird with an even more gaudy mating technique soars gracefully. The male frigate bird transforms his body to attract a mate, demonstrating his prowess by inflating a large scarlet pouch beneath his bill. He waits patiently for a female to take notice. Once she has made her selection, she lands delicately beside him and makes her commitment. Deep within the parent's throat, a hungry chick finds a meal. Both parents feed the chicks for their first 3 months. The mother hunts for the young for a further 8 months, so eggs are only laid every other year. Flamingos arrived on the Galapagos from the Caribbean and can be seen in brackish lagoons on several islands. Their unusually shaped beaks allow them to swing their heads upside down below the surface, sucking in water and algae and small crustaceans, which are full of beta-carotene, the same substance that gives carrots their hue. And that's what gives the flamingos their unique pigmentation. As Charles Darwin discovered, there is a diversity of species between the different islands of the Galapagos. But sea lions can be found on all of them. They have been called the island's unofficial welcoming committee. They gather in colonies on sand or rocks. Pairs mate in the water. Males, identified by a prominent bump on their forehead, dominate harems and vigorously defend their territories. But the females can move between groups. Young sea lion pups are also on the move. For the most part, however, the sea lions just laze about, enjoying the sun. On another island, sea lions share their habitat with marine iguana. Their leathery black skin provides stealthy camouflage against the dark, rocky lava. But at the start of the mating season, the males become more brilliantly colored. But even at their brightest, they can't compete with the Sally Lightfoot crabs eating parasites off the iguana's body. Having migrated to the Galapagos as land iguanas, they adapted to their new marine environment. They are the only ocean-going lizards in the world, navigating seamlessly between land and water. These iguanas are so populous that each kilometer of coastline supports up to 3,000. Being cold-blooded, they have to warm their bodies in the sun after searching for food in the water. They can dive for as long as 30 minutes, but on returning to land, they can be quite slow-moving until they warm up. After swimming, they spit excess water from their nostrils. This process also allows them to extract salt from the water. There are other iguanas on the Galapagos. The land iguana remains firmly rooted to the soil in the driest parts of several of the islands. They and the marine iguana are thought to have a common ancestor, but the land-dwelling species didn't adapt to the water. They amble around among the dry brush in search of the thirst-quenching juice of cactus pads. The tortoise is celebrated for its extraordinary size. Males grow up to 1.5 meters long and weigh up to 250 kilos. Galapagos is an old Spanish word for tortoise. They peacefully roam the islands named for them in search of green grasses, the poison apple, and guava. But when they feel threatened, they retract their head and legs. On a hot day, a mud pool tempers the equatorial sun. Tortoises are known for their longevity, in some cases living up to 200 years. This one could have crossed paths with Charles Darwin himself. When European navigators first arrived on the Galapagos in the 16th century, the population numbered a healthy 250,000. But their large size and slow movements worked to their detriment. These giants became an abundant source of fresh food for sailors. Stowed upside down in ships' holds, they were unable to right themselves. Today, the population of giant tortoises is estimated at 20,000. Their conservation is a priority. It is a rare privilege to spend time with this endangered animal. The diverse creatures of the Galapagos Islands allow people to approach them closely. The effort to reach these remote, beautiful landscapes is worthwhile. In the heart of a rain-soaked paradise, there's a multitude of unique sights and sounds. On the coast of Costa Rica, Corcovado National Park has been created in the rainforest as a sanctuary for a wide range of species. It's one of the largest lowland tropical rainforests in the world. Logging has devastated most habitats like this in Central America. But here, the conservation area rises from the warm azure waters of the Pacific and is the jewel in the region's crown. 13 different ecosystems are found within the park, including mangrove swamps, palm groves, and cloud forest, as well as the rainforest. There's a huge diversity of species, more than 500 types of tree, 140 different mammals, and 400 kinds of birds, along with amphibians, reptiles, and a huge variety of insects. The air is thick with humidity, and there is little escape from the overwhelming heat. Corcovado National Park covers over 400 square kilometers. Hiking in the park can be strenuous, with fast-running rivers to ford and a slippery foothold under the forest canopy. But the chance to glimpse the abundance of wildlife is worth the effort. A full-day journey in the park begins before sunrise, perhaps permitting a glimpse of the nocturnal red-eyed tree frog. At daybreak, a heavy downpour often inundates the forest. After the rains subside, and the essential waters that nourish the flora and fauna fill crisp hillside streams, animals emerge. And the full splendor of Corcovado is unveiled. The sights are breathtaking. After feeding on almond trees by the coastline, scarlet macaws soar in unison above the treetops in an aerial ballet. The largest of the tropical parrot species, a macaw's tail accounts for more than half its length of about a meter. They are monogamous during a lifespan that's typically 50 years. Nearly 1,600 macaws live in Corcovado. It's the largest population in the whole of Latin America of a bird that cares nothing for camouflage. However, they are endangered. Prized as household pets, there are more scarlet macaws in captivity than in the wild. The birds circle around the outer edges of the park. Settling on a branch, they deftly use their beaks as a third foot to maneuver through the trees. And also for feeding, of course. Below them, the upper canopy of the forest shades mosses, vines, and a variety of fungi that all grow around each other, interconnected in this complex web of life. Many of the residents of the forest are timid, like this group of peccaries. They're related to pigs, but are too aggressive to be domesticated. They live in family groups, sometimes as large as 100 members. They've been hunted for centuries by the indigenous people of the area. Any disturbance, and they will break for cover. There's much else to discover in this dynamic forest. Unusual sounds carry through the still air. Everywhere creatures are on the move, including some of the smallest. The leaf-cutting ant is diminutive but powerful, working on the forest floor and living in colonies that can number 4 million. They're small and can easily go unnoticed. But when they show off their skills, the colony provides a glimpse of spellbinding behavior. Worker ants carry leaves to the nest from up to 100 meters away. An ant can carry 12 times its own body weight. This is an achievement equivalent to a human carrying a small car on his back. The leaves are not a food source for the ants. Instead, they use them as fertilizer to grow fungus that feeds the colony. A ray of sunshine peeks through, casting the morning light on a poison arrow frog, so called because the indigenous people use its poison on their arrows. There are 175 species of poison frog, ranging between 1 and 6 centimeters long. Their bright colors are intended to deter predators. The toxin excreted through the skin isn't lethal, just nasty enough for a predator to release them. At noontime, with the sun at its zenith, the only respite is found in the shade of the leaf canopy, which offers some protection from the sun's rays, but provides no escape from the oppressive humidity. High up in the trees, a howler monkey takes cover beneath the leaves. Their distinctive sound can be heard over 5 kilometers away. It's a territorial call that males make at dawn and dusk. Establishing their territory helps a troop protect its food supply. The spider monkey is one of the most agile of all primates. Leaping from branch to branch, the long spindly limbs inspired its name, and it uses its prehensile tail to help it on its way. Above everything else, unfazed by the sweltering atmosphere, is the toucan. It's a vision of brilliance. 6 of the 42 toucan species live in Costa Rica. The disproportionately large and colorful beak seems almost absurd, but it is in fact lighter and more practical than it appears. It evolved to help toucans eat hard-to-reach fruits. At the highest elevations in Corcovado, mosses cover every available surface in the cloud forest. At the shoreline below, in the marshy wetlands, crocodiles wait in swampy waters for unsuspecting prey. All the varied ecosystems are connected here. The oceans, the trees, and the marsh weeds are unified by the waters that flow between them. Visitors leave the hues of gold and lavender behind them. After a visit to Corcovado, the abundance of flora and fauna will remain in the memory. Deep in an Asian forest lurks a strange and lovable creature. In the mountains of Sichuan province in southwest China, the Wolong National Nature Reserve is a hidden treasure. The remote area is reached over a series of winding roads that zigzag along rivers in the shadow of the snow-capped Balang Mountain. It's where the cool, misty mountain air meets the pristine blue sky. At an altitude of 1,000 meters, beneath the cover of the forest canopy, various animals share an almost undisturbed habitat. Wolong National Park has been carved out of this area as a tranquil refuge from the activities of people. Hidden waterfalls hum as they cascade down the valley. The thick bamboo groves give sustenance to some of the most magical creatures known to man, like the golden monkey. This endangered species exists in one of the most extreme environments for any primate, up to 4,500 meters elevation. Large groups of golden monkeys live together, feeding on fruit and leaves. According to Chinese folklore, these monkeys bring good luck, but they face a persistent enemy. Across China, poachers hunt these charismatic creatures for their fur and the purported medicinal value of their bones. But conservationists are working on breeding programs to save these elusive animals. Golden monkeys share this habitat with another charming and endangered animal, the red panda. Nicknamed firefox in Chinese, this creature scampers through the forest using its long bushy tail for balance. Red pandas have been scientifically classified with both raccoons and giant pandas. Some scientists classify them in their own unique family. Whatever their taxonomy, they share diet and habitat with a larger and more elusive creature. Giant pandas lead largely solitary lives deep within the thick foliage. They are perhaps the most beloved of the planet's endangered species. The giant panda is China's national treasure. But it was unknown to the Western world until 1869, when a French missionary, Armand David, sent home word about an exotic black and white pelt from a bear-like creature. Since then, this strange and lovable animal has become an icon. Recognized internationally as the face of conservation, it's an ambassador for animal protection. Every panda in the world's zoos is the result of an arrangement with the Chinese government. The panda is shy and wary of people. When it detects a human scent, it leaves. Getting this close in the wild is most unusual. Pandas don't breed easily in the wild or captivity. Females produce eggs only once a year and are fertile for just a few days. 2 or 3 cubs are often born, but because the mother has to nurture a newborn intensively, she takes care of only one. The male panda secretes a scent high up the trunk of a tree. This will stake out its territory and ward off intruders. In another territorial sign, the panda strips off the bark of trees in its domain. Male pandas weigh up to 150 kilos. Females are a little smaller. These magnificent animals present one of nature's great ironies. Bamboo makes up 99% of their diet. They collect and consume bamboo for 10 to 16 hours every day. Pandas evolved to be carnivores, but curiously they adopted a vegetarian diet. Not only does bamboo offer little nutritional value, but it is also very tough and difficult to digest. And so the black and white giant has to chew every last morsel. The panda lethargically meanders around the forest, devouring as much as 18 kilos of bamboo a day. Any reduction in the bamboo groves will deplete their population. Such a fate befell them in the 1970s. They all but disappeared when blight destroyed vast areas of bamboo. The other great threat to pandas is from humans. Despite Wolong's remoteness, there is a strain on the panda's habitat. Living on the boundaries of the reserve, the local people use trees for fuel and clear the land for agriculture. Without continuing intervention, the species the world has come to know and love could rapidly disappear. The Wolong Nature Reserve runs a captive breeding program. Some pandas are also kept in large fenced areas where they can learn to fend for themselves before being released into the wild. The Chinese government, partnering with the World Wildlife Fund and UNESCO, is actively pursuing conservation efforts. In a stunning triumph, they have managed to increase the population of wild pandas from a mere 20 in 1980 to at least 1,600 today. Perhaps one day this beguiling creature will come off the endangered species list. And the world will continue to be seduced by the panda's charms. Colors explode like undersea fireworks as one of nature's marvelous vistas is revealed. Bordering the Coral Sea before it spreads to the vastness of the Pacific, the Great Barrier Reef hugs the coast of northeastern Australia. Far beyond the forests where animal lovers delight in the sight of a koala, or marvel at a rainbow-colored bird, and beyond the white sand beaches lies a unique environment that beckons adventurers. Complementing the lush, warm and inviting Australian landscape, the waters beneath the ocean's surface teem with a dazzling array of distinctive life. This is the pride of the South Pacific. An underwater paradise that's home to 1,500 species of fish, 5,000 kinds of mollusks, and 400 different corals. The Great Barrier Reef stretches over 2,500 kilometers and is the world's largest reef. Nearly 3,000 individual reefs and 900 islands make up a structure so massive it's visible from low Earth orbit. Reefs are made from uncountable billions of tiny animals, coral polyps. Each polyp lives inside a hard shell, the material we recognize as coral. They combine into underwater forests in fascinating fan, antler, and brain formations. In most species of coral, the polyps share the calcium carbonate shell with algae. In this mutually beneficial arrangement, the algae help the coral remove waste and produce oxygen, while the algae remain protected within the coral shell. The coral's color is largely generated by the algae. Among the passageways created by the reefs, the most incredible life thrives. There is color everywhere. Creatures move and dance, each with their own rhythm. The cuttlefish, a mollusk, not a fish, like its cousin the squid, is an underwater chameleon. It has the astonishing ability to change its entire body swiftly, not only its color, but also the texture of its skin. There are around 200 pigment cells per square millimeter. This ability to blend in with the background is useful for sneaking up on its prey: crabs, shrimp, small fish, and other cuttlefish. Its main predator is the grouper. They're not fast swimmers and tend to lie in wait for their prey, ready to swallow a fresh catch with their enormous jaws. The Queensland grouper can grow to nearly 3 meters in length and weigh more than 400 kilos. It may be on the move, slowly, but there's another, more immobile monster in these waters, the giant clam. Weighing in at nearly 230 kilos and over a meter across, nautical folklore suggested it could trap a man's leg. But this creature, which can live more than a century, closes its shell in self-defense, not attack, and does so quite slowly. 6 of the world's 7 species of sea turtle inhabit the Great Barrier Reef. This wounded flipper was probably the result of an encounter with a shark. It swims in a shipwreck that has been colonized by coral and become part of the reef. This turtle is burdened by barnacles. Barnacles are a type of crustacean that can be quite a liability for a sea turtle. If too many attach themselves, they can endanger their survival. The excess drag makes it harder for the turtle to swim, catch food, or in some cases even see. But conservationists are on the lookout for such creatures and have a high success rate in cleaning them off and saving their lives. The lulling rhythm in the crystalline waters of the reef obscures the daily drama of the marine food chain. Every possible shape of marine life seems to live around the reef. Predators like the moray eel suddenly emerge from coral canyons, looking for an opportunity to devour unlucky smaller creatures. A stingray skirts the reef like a gust of wind, creating an underwater sandstorm. Although its long pointed tail is tipped by a venomous stinger, rays aren't ordinarily aggressive and use the barb in self-defense. For the most part, however, reef life moves at a slow pace. Between crevices of multicolored coral weaves an angelfish. It glows an electric blue from the bioluminescent bacteria that live inside it. But the main attraction of the reef is the coral itself. This huge interconnected ecosystem of living organisms is thought to be between 6,000 and 8,000 years old. Both hard and soft corals are found on the reef, but amid this array of breathtaking color, there is a lurking threat. All is not perfect in these undersea gardens. An ocean temperature rise of just 2 degrees Celsius over 6 to 8 weeks causes the coral to become stressed. The polyps expel the color-enhancing algae, and the result is a bleaching effect. The coral loses its color and parts of the reef are blanketed in white. When warm temperatures persist, the corals start to die. If global temperatures were to rise permanently, the reef would be in jeopardy. Changes in temperature also mean that some fish species will seek cooler waters, with consequential effects on the food chain. Despite the environmental stress, the reef still delivers a symphony of unparalleled vitality. The coral spawn is one of nature's most dramatic exhibitions. The event is triggered by rising seasonal sea temperatures and the full moon in October and November. After sundown, the corals spawn in unison. Coral polyps expand and release eggs and sperm to fertilize and populate new coral colonies wherever the currents may carry them. The coral eggs that don't manage to breed join the floating plankton as a food source for other reef-dwelling creatures. And thus the reef remains a self-sustaining ecosystem. The vibrant colors hypnotize marine life enthusiasts who flock here from around the world to dive in this unique environment. At the Great Barrier Reef, they have the opportunity to experience the breadth of nature's bounty. A cornucopia of animals unites in the largest annual migration on Earth. In East Africa, the Serengeti National Park and the Masai Mara National Reserve offer a trans-border sanctuary for some of the world's most magnificent creatures. In the language of the Masai, Serengeti means land that goes on forever. From the Serengeti Plain northwards into the Masai Mara Reserve, the savanna seems to extend to the horizon and beyond. It's a landscape so striking and so wild, it leaves visitors breathless. Spanning the border between Kenya and Tanzania, this vast unspoiled territory of grasslands, dotted with shrubs and acacia trees, is an unparalleled destination for an unforgettable wildlife safari. Travelers find many of nature's most exquisite animals in this landscape. Sharing the savanna with the wild animals are the Maasai people and their goats and cattle. Their oral history suggests that they have led a semi-nomadic existence here since the 15th century. They have adapted to this austere environment and made it their own. The Maasai have declined the efforts of the Kenyan and Tanzanian governments to resettle them, and so they continue their traditional lifestyles, inhabiting the borderlands of these two countries, their movement following the rhythm of the seasons. Once they have exploited the riches of one site, they move on to new land, leading their animals to the next place they will call home. best way to see this rugged terrain is in a four-wheel drive vehicle. A herd of elephants grazes on the sparse grass, their colossal limbs advancing as if in slow motion. Two juveniles playfully jostle each other, while the adults continue the important task of eating. Nearby, a giraffe, one of the most elegant creatures on the plain, reaches for leaves. The wind blows, offering some relief from the dry savanna air. The grasses bend in the breeze, creating a peaceful tune as they sway. Despite the pastoral mood on the plain, life on the grasslands is a constant cycle of survival. Predators teach their young to hunt. A lioness surveys the territory for a potential kill, demonstrating to her cubs how to sniff out and stalk their prey. Jackals will attack reptiles and small antelopes, but they'll also skirt the scene, hoping to feed from larger predators' leftovers. Once the adults have eaten, it's the turn of the young to feed. Scavengers from the air and the ground will reduce the carcass to little more than a skeleton. While nearby, a pair of lions begin the mating ritual. More than 70 species of large mammals live here, but it's the wildebeest that is perhaps the strangest and most intriguing of them all. According to an East African legend, this bizarre-looking creature was last in line at the time of creation and was made of leftovers. Wildebeest travel great distances in astounding numbers. Each year, towards the end of summer after the rains have ended, 1.5 million wildebeest migrate northward from Tanzania in search of greener pastures. Joining them are vast herds of zebras and gazelles. Together they make up the largest land migration on Earth and one of the most spectacular sights on the planet. The wildebeest may seem to be somewhat comical, but theirs is a vital role for an ecosystem that has remained unchanged for millennia. The 500-kilometer odyssey is undertaken to make the most of every drop of rain. The journey is not without its dangers. The animals face many threats along the way. Stalking the fringes of this moving feast, hyenas, cheetahs, and lions wait for an easy mark, such as an old or tired animal. But charging the herd is risky. The sheer numbers make that an ambitious proposition. Vultures also congregate, ready to scavenge after the predators have had their fill. In a feat of synchronized gestation, nearly 80% of all the year's calves are born within just a few weeks. After traveling from the Serengeti Plains, the migrants face their first major obstacle, the Mara River on the Kenyan border. But this is not just an ordinary river. Here, ravenous crocodiles, among the biggest in the world, linger beneath the water, waiting for their next meal. as the oldest and weakest among the herd perish, the group becomes stronger, making way for a new generation. A swollen river can also mean death for animals who are trampled as they try to cross. Most animals make it to the far bank. The hippopotamus also lives in the Mara River basin. Its name is derived from the Greek words for horse and river, though they are more closely related to pigs than horses. But do not be deceived by their bulky appearance. The hippo is a fierce animal said to have killed more people than any other African creature, save the mosquito. After crossing the river, it's time for a much-needed rest. The wildebeest and their entourage will continue their advance throughout the night, following each other's scent in the darkness. Nearly 100,000 tourists visit the Serengeti and the Masai Mara reserves each year, hoping to catch a glimpse of this amazing range of wildlife. Back at the Maasai camp, warriors dressed in their customary red fabrics bring their cattle in for the evening. And the Masai Mara settles for the night. But across the globe, the sun never sets on the world's wildlife treasures. Menagerie of the Great Barrier Reef, and the panda, which has become an icon for endangered species. They are the planet's wildlife treasures. No one who has ever laid eyes on a wild tiger can forget the experience. Endangered, they have to be protected from their only predator, man. In northern India, an area of dry deciduous forest, Ranthambore National Park, is the place to admire a sleek and noble beast. India is a land of grace and color. With over 1 billion residents, the second most populous country in the world has a long and distinguished history stretching back over millennia. Exotic foods, traditional marketplaces, precious textiles. It is the land of 700,000 villages, as Gandhi put it so poetically. On the outskirts of Ranthambore National Park, village life is much like other places on the subcontinent, except that here, children have grown up with tales of fierce man-eating tigers emerging from the forest to dine on the This is the world at its most spectacular, the most memorable, most exotic, most magical must-see destinations. Selected by the world's most seasoned travel editors. These are the best of the best. There are many animals that inspire awe or fascination. The unique creatures of the Galapagos. Majestic beasts of the African savanna. The undersea madly behaved. On a bright autumn afternoon, under rustling leaves, the environment appears too tranquil to conceal one of nature's greatest hunters. A light breeze blows through the forest, and even the langurs, hopping about on architectural ruins, seem to appreciate a respite from the scorching Indian sun. Sambar deer, the third largest species in the world, graze peacefully, while peacocks gather at a pond. It's hard to believe that this serene landscape conceals one of nature's most formidable predators. Even in this national park, the sighting of one of these rare creatures is far from guaranteed. Probably no more than 24 tigers roam its 400 square kilometers. Men have exploited these forests for centuries. The Maharajas of Jaipur hunted here. Indian royalty would descend on the area for colorful tiger hunts, and the British Raj later followed their example. Following in those footsteps, it's still possible to hunt for tigers in the national park by elephant. This is a hunt in name only. The tigers that survive prey. The hunt is on, and the tiger's presence causes the heart rate to quicken. This remains one of the few places where patience and good fortune reward the visitor with a glimpse of a Royal Bengal tiger. But get too close, and there will be a scowl to warn off intruders. Tigers hunt alone. The tall golden grass provides excellent camouflage. The tiger is an opportunistic hunter. It will try to kill any prey that crosses its path. From monkeys to baby elephants, even humans if it gets the chance. Stealthily it hides, waiting for its prey. Today are fiercely protected. The rifles are there to ward off tigers. Generally, they will steer clear of these massive animals. Their mere presence will keep the hunters on foot safe from attack. The The authorities are engaged in a constant battle with those who would still try to poach these beautiful creatures, for their skins and the supposed medicinal remedies derived from many of their body parts. Perhaps a herd of cheetah deer will attract a predator. There are other places in Asia and Siberia to see a tiger in its natural habitat. Of the 3,000 or so left in the wild, India's Bengal tigers represent about half the total population. The tigers of Ranthambore have adapted to their protected surroundings and become diurnal. This means that they hunt these forests during the day, not at night like tigers in other places. And that's what makes Ranthambore unique. The chance to observe a tiger stalking through the forest in the full glory of the midday sun. A tiger on the prowl needs to outsmart its